Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the place where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today I have a question for you, and it's a Dwight Schrute question. Do you want to form an alliance with me? And I ask that because my next guests, they are Rick and Piper, and they are the hosts of the Pop Collectors Alliance podcast. Rick and Piper, thanks for being on the show.
Hey,
what's up?
Is it Rick and Piper or Piper and Rick?
I think it's interchangeable.
Yeah, it's completely interchangeable.
Very fluid.
Nice. Yeah. As I said, we've been chatting a little bit. I always do a bit of a warm-up conversation with people that come on the podcast. But I mentioned I've been listening to you guys for a while. Actually, first found your podcast early last year, I believe. I was out going for walks, looking for a podcast to listen to, and I think I may have been searching for Funko, and I saw that there was someone talking about Funko NFTs, and I started listening during those episodes. So I'm sure you've probably found a few people have found you that way. But for people who aren't familiar with your podcast, give us a bit of the background. How did Pop Collectors Alliance, how did that start out?
So it's actually really funny. So Piper and I, we came together in a completely unrelated manner. And I needed a website to be designed for me. And we had a mutual friend. And he was like, I know this guy that does websites. And he introduced us. And so we went through the designs. And I think Piper and I were on like, I don't know, it was like some video call. And I saw a bunch of pop figures in the back. And I was like, man, you collect pops? He's like, yeah, I collect pops. And I was like, so do I. That's awesome. And he had a podcast. I had different podcasts, and we had like a sort of network thing going on. And then we were talking one day, and we are just like, why don't we just do a podcast about pop? Because we both collect it. We've both done podcasts before. So it was sort of the natural occurrence of things, because we both had massive collections and we collected different things, but we enjoyed the hobby. So, I mean, one thing led to another, and, 5 years later, we are.
It's almost at 6 now.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. It's all just because of, and it's funny, the guy that you knew, were you guys in the Air Force together?
No, we worked at the same place.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I worked with this guy. I used to work at Circuit City, like forever ago, like electronics store. And he and I we were friends, and I guess Rick and him were friends, and it just kind of all meshed in there nicely.
Awesome. But listening to you guys, it seems as though, someone listening may think that you guys are like childhood friends, the way you've got this really great connection, I think, and a real great chemistry.
No, I hate this guy
as well.
I don't like him. I'm forced to do this. That's just how it goes.
We're like, we don't talk unless we're in the same room now.
That's not inaccurate. Let's be honest.
But the truth is that I think that what's so crazy about it is that, one, there's chemistry, and I appreciate that the compliment. And we try to, sometimes people prepare for shows, and people like work really hard at doing things. And I'm not saying that we don't, like, we write shows and things like that, but sometimes our lives get busy, and we've built sort of a chemistry over time that one week we'll be like, we don't really have a topic. Let's throw something together. And then it's like 2 seconds, and we've sort of built this bond, not only through collecting. I mean, we're best friends, right? So we've known each other for a while, and it just kind of, I don't know, it was weird. Our personalities kind of like, I'm trying to beat the drum and get through the episode. Piper's got that color commentary, and it always seems to work out. And we switch roles sometimes too, but I mean, I think that it kind of naturally occurred over time, and it's grown to what it is.
Yeah, and as I said, that chemistry definitely comes through, and that friendship definitely comes through. And I honestly don't think that you can say that you hate someone without loving them first, right?
I don't know, man.
Like, you can dislike someone if you don't really know them, but to really hate someone, I think you have to have known them and really cared for them on some level.
No. Yeah.
We're in that perpetual state of, you're at your friend's house for too long, and you're like, what? Wait a second. What?
I need to go home.
But, we've been geographically separated for, I don't know, like 2 years almost now. Yeah. And coming back together, we had a hiatus on the podcast, and just coming back again, and we like literally jumped right back into the saddle. So it's been pretty epic, the last 15 episodes where we've sort of come back together and started again and reinvigorated things and the store and everything as we move on. So it's been a very unique experience.
Let's actually. That's a great segue because I wanted to mention the store. You have the store PCA Toys in Keller, Texas.
Mhm.
Well, did that exist prior to the podcast as well? How long has the store been around?
Well, I mean, kind of like we've always done conventions together. Like Ricky started doing cons prior to like us meeting each other, but since then, like we've done quite a few of them over the past like 5 years. Like, and so yeah, I guess in that sense it did, and it has always functioned in that name, that same namespace. But I would say at some level that commerce monster thing has existed.
Yeah, I think it's a natural attrition of sort of like Piper said. I had a con thing where I was doing things, and then we found a space, and it was poor timing on my part because I was actually leaving. But I mean, when you talk about something so much, and then you get that opportunity to transition it into a business and sort of enhance the experience for everyone. I think it's been unique in that regard because I don't think that you see a tremendous amount while some people capitalize on their social media influence, but people that genuinely care about, podcasting or things along those lines that actually turn that into, a store or traveling and selling things.
Yeah, I think there's also a passion that you must have to do that, right? Like, obviously, you are collectors as well, but I mean, looking at Piper's face right now, you're definitely not making $1 million once the store opens there, right? Like, you're doing it as a bit of a passion thing. How's that been for you, and how difficult is the journey for that, or how easy is it because of the passion?
Oh my gosh, it's not easy at all. So I think the thing that really has enabled us to do that is because yeah, you're right. You're not going to make $1 million, especially not upfront. It takes a long time. You have to
Mhm.
build that following, and you have to, which we have through the podcast and through our social media and stuff like that. But on top of that, just like the local following. And the nice thing is like my other job, I'm a web developer. So my job allows me to work remotely and I kind
Mhm.
of get to choose my own hours. So the combination of that and then having the store has kind of made it work. And I'm not dependent on running the store and making enough money to like live off of because my other job facilitates that. So yeah, it is 100% passion, especially when I'm putting in 80, 90 hours a week between like I just that's what my life consists of: building websites, spending as much time with my family as they will, or I guess the least amount of time as they will physically allow. And then literally the rest of my time is at the store. I think this week I have not left there before 2 a.m.
Wow.
From Tuesday until today I got off at like 6:30, so that was nice. But yeah, it's definitely it's a labor of love for sure. So and especially with Rick has been out of the state for the past like what is it 2 years?
Yeah,
Is
two
it two
years.
years?
Yeah.
So now it'll be nice that we'll be able to work on it together. So maybe take a little bit of weight off.
I think one of the things that the platform allows us to do is to show people both sides of it, peel back the curtain and that layer too. I mean, it's one of the things that you don't know, or as a listener or a collector, the hours like Piper had talked about, not only in the store but setting up cons and tearing down and everything that's involved in it. And
Mm.
it's a unique experience. You see all of it, right? And you see the sort of the background, the good and the bad, and the ugly and the great and the amazing, because cons are such a unique opportunity to meet people. The store is a unique opportunity to meet people. So you really get to engage not only with your audience, but you build an audience off of that too, because you share that passion with your customers.
People don't realize that when you're tearing down a convention that it's like, well, I'm 6 hours away from my house. It's
Mhm.
Sunday night at 8 o'clock. I need to tear this all down. I need to load up the U-Haul. I need to drive 6 hours back from terrible Houston. And then we get here, have to unload everything because we got to get the U-Haul back at 9 o'clock in the morning. So you just put in a 28-hour day. It is, they don't see that
Wow.
part. They see the fun part of like, oh, I get to walk around and get autographs and buy cool trinkets and things. No, you don't know the hard parts, kids.
If you're doing a convention together, do you work it out so that, like, if each of you wants to go and see a certain panel or go maybe get a signature from a certain person, is there a schedule you have to work on beforehand as well?
I don't think there's a schedule. We just like say, "Hey, I'm leaving," and then the other person's like, "Okay, get me a hot dog."
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's pretty like yes, I guess so. There's some like when you're doing like a larger event, like for us here, Fan Expo Dallas, it's really it was 80,000. Does that mean people?
Yeah.
So that something like that, yeah. There is a level of coordination. We usually have a lot of help when we go out to these things because like my wife will come out there, and then our friends will come out there and help at the booth. Like we have a producer for the podcast. His name's Brandon. We've mentioned him a million times on the podcast. He always comes out and helps if we need him to stand at the booth while we go to the bathroom, or like if we need him to go and or take pictures or just do stuff for the podcast. He's there to help. So we do have it's not just the two of us. I think doing a big convention is very, very difficult with just two people.
Yeah.
So we have that help. But yeah, there's a level of communication that you have to have, but it's not like we don't like pre-plan anything out. That's my brain is too small for that.
Yeah, it's like ebbs and flows. If there's that break in time where our booth isn't surrounded, it's like, hey, I'm going to
When
go
is
over
that?
here.
When is that?
It's not very often, but you maybe get like 2 or 3 times a day, and then that's when you run out.
Yeah, that's your one bathroom break. I hope you use it wisely.
It's not one of those ones where you're going to sit there looking at your phone for 30 minutes. You've got to get in and out, right?
Oh, I don't know. I've never been in a convention like that. Like usually we always have a good turnout. We promoted it quite a bit, and we tend to have really good prices, I think, as far as like conventions go. And we always bring like good items. So we tend to have a lot of foot traffic. So I kind of like it's good and bad, because it would be nice to like maybe if we had on Sunday, it'd be great if it was slow. But no, it doesn't ever tend to be that way.
When cons have just exploded, I don't know if it's the same way over there, but they've been just even through COVID, you lost some of it, but as it's come back, I think it's come back to the times, to the factor of 2, because every convention this year that I've heard of, or we have friends that are exhibiting, they're just like, it's crazy.
Well, we were just at me and Brandon. We were at Texas Smash. It's like My Hero Academia. It's like just had a bunch of voice actors there, and that's all it was just voice actors. That place was packed. It was insane, and I did not anticipate it. We just went to like just go and hang out and like meet people and buy a couple of things, and yeah, it was like wall to wall people. And we went on Sunday too. It was very crazy. I was not prepared. So that's kind of been how the whole season so far has been. And even getting into conventions for us has been a challenge. Whereas in the past, we could just, call them up, the promoters up and be like, hey, we need this many booths. And they've in the past, there's like, yeah, sure. But now it's like, sorry, you are on a mile long waiting list. Maybe next year.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's one of the things I was actually thinking when you're talking about it. I was thinking how many, like, since obviously the pandemic is now, we're moving away from that. Things are getting back to normal, quote unquote. How many, on average, how many conventions would you have done a year prior to that? And where are you at now?
Well, I think that we had started ramping up right before COVID. So a normal convention year for us was like 3 or 4. And then this year we had planned to try and do 6 and really try to drive things to scale. But it was just so hard to get into. I think we're going to end up around the 4 or 5 range. And then knowing that next year the plan is to be at like 10 or 12. But our ultimate goal is to do a show a month at least.
Yeah, and there's a lot of around here. There's a lot of like small pop-ups and like just like street shows and stuff like that we can get into as well. That are like one day things, and there's a lot of like pop swaps and things like that. So we have avenues. I think they're not all obviously going to be as big as say like Fan Expo Dallas or something like that, but there's plenty of things that we can do if we're just like, man, we need to go do a show. There's probably something going on.
And what about the Mecca that is San Diego or even New York? Have you done those ones yet, or are they on the list?
We've never vendored at one, but we have been to all of those multiple times. I've been to Emerald City 3 times, and I've been to New York twice, and then we've been to Toy Fair. Have we done once or twice at Toy Fair?
I've done it once. We've done it twice.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we've been to a bunch of the events, but yeah, that's intimidating, and it's so expensive because you have to get the stuff like we are like we have the unfortunate location of being very far away from all of those. Like we've done the drive to New York for New York Comic Con before, and we have it's well documented.
How long is that?
We do.
It was 26
hours, but it took us like 4 hours to get out of Dallas because it was just like, hey, guess what? Gridlock today, and the only day. Yeah, so it took us a long time to get out, but even once we got out, it was long, and we stopped halfway. We stopped in Tennessee, and we slept for 3 hours in a hotel because we had a deadline, because we had interviews that we had to do, because we were meeting up with a couple different toy makers, and then we had to pick up my buddy in Northern Virginia before we got to New York. So it was like we had got to get there at a certain time, and then so it was chaos. It was not enjoyable. Once we got there, it was great. Like, New York is like one of my favorite places in the world, but yeah, getting there was not. It wasn't good.
And the con itself, when you exhibit there, getting a booth, I think it's the floor, right? I don't think we'll ever get into San Diego because it's just,
that's all corporate.
Yeah, and it's lineage, right? There's people that have been there year after year after year. So that's, you have a floor space set that's like, we have these sponsors, these people that are going to be there because of the traffic. New York, you could still get into as an exhibitor. I think it was like a year-long waiting list or something like that. Yeah. But it's all timing. Those are expensive shows. It's like $2,700 for one 10x10 booth.
You get a thumbnail size booth. Emerald City is really easy because they have a lot of focus on like small creators and small vendors. Okay. So that's a simple show to get into. But yeah, the other two are definitely like, you gotta, there's a lot of hopes and prayers to get in there.
Nice. And would each of you, you can take turns at giving each of your own, or you can choose one each, but I'd love to hear your experiences going to the conventions and all these different meetups. What's your one nightmare story, and what's your favorite story as well?
I'll take the New York City Comic-Con trip.
Is that the cocaine hobos? Is that one?
No, you can take the cocaine hobos at Emerald City.
No, that wasn't my like terror. You start and then I will.
Yeah, we'll just, I think we'll tag team this story.
Nice.
But it is, I think, universally accepted as our worst nightmare story of the New York Comic-Con trip. So, like Piper said, we wanted to go to New York. And here's the thing that people don't understand about cons. Like, if you're Funko collectors like us and you get into the line, we have a large following. So back in those times, you get into the line, we buy one of everything, and then we do a lot of giveaways. We do games with our listeners and things like that when we live stream. So we're there to buy the entire lineup.
We buy that was the goal, was to buy every single thing. Well, actually, it ended up being 2 of every single thing in the booth.
And when you think about cost of shipping and getting that back, it becomes exponentially like unacceptable to say, okay, I'm going to spend $800. Why don't we just drive? So that's where our idea to drive came from. So we rented a van and we started this journey, and we were like, we're going to get to Tennessee. We're going to sleep. We like Piper said, we had stopping points everywhere. And then on the way there, I wouldn't say that the worst part on the way there was the fact that we had got caught in Dallas, and it really delayed us so that we only got 3 hours of sleep. Then we picked up his friend and went up to New York. We got there early in the morning, like 2 a.m. And we wanted to get the HBO exclusive Children of the Forest, the metallic Children of the Forest. So we immediately left and got in that line. And we were waiting in that line for like 7 hours.
Yeah, after driving like 15 hours.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And so there's little touch points. We had a great time at the convention. We got one of pretty much everything. We had like so many bags of stuff that we ended up taking back to us. But then the tables just turned, and it was the trip back. And I'll let you take your portion of it. But we had a Dodge. I don't know if everyone knows, it's like a Dodge Caravan is what it is. I'll never rent another Dodge again, but we had a Dodge Caravan, and we were driving around the Beltway, and it's in October. So it's, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's like 90, it was like 96 degrees here Fahrenheit. So that's like 30 or 40 something down there. I don't know what that is. Sorry about that, but
that's okay. We were in, I think 90 is about like, it's close to 30 degrees down here. Yeah.
Okay, so it was hot and for October in the north. That's like ridiculous. So we were going around DC, Washington DC, and we were going to drop his friend off. Well, I looked down at the gas, and it says we have a quarter tank, and I'm like, man, we've had a quarter tank for a while. All of a sudden, I
no.
press the gas,
Oh,
and it
no.
doesn't go. And Piper's like, what's going on? I'm like, it's not going, dude. It's not going. And so we pull off on a hill, and then we're all standing in a circle. We're like, what do we do? Can we push this? And it was up a hill, so there's no
pushing, and it's heavy, and it was full of
It's full of all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Piper just bolts off and just starts walking. He's like, I'm gonna find a gas can. So he's just walking up the side of the interstate. And this is like DC traffic at the worst time of the day. And it's 96 degrees out. Piper just disappears in the distance. And then I call, I think I called Avis, which is the rental car company, to send somebody out to get it. They come back. Piper comes back. You had a gas can.
Yeah,
right?
I found a gas can. I went to a gas station. I bought a gas can. I filled up with gas and walked back. It was a long walk too.
Yeah, it was. You're drenched in sweat.
Yes.
And then his friend is standing out there. I'm in the car. We're like, no, no AC. They come, the mechanics come, they fill it up, and Piper comes right with this gas can.
Just
and they
in
start
time.
the car. Yeah. And we start the car and get out of there. And then we drop his friend off, and then I'll hand it over to Piper.
So it's like the middle of the night. We're driving, and I was on the phone with my wife, and I was just like, tell her like, hey, telling the story. This is what's going on. I had the car, the van was on cruise control, so I didn't have to pay attention to what I was doing. But I guess it doesn't have like hill descent assist cruise control, so we picked up some speed going down a hill. I wasn't looking, and then sirens and lights go off behind me, and I'm like, okay, not a big deal, whatever. I didn't know that in the state of Virginia, so the speed limit was 75. In the state of Virginia, if you go over 75 or it's over 80,
it was 70, and if you go over 80, you get reckless driving.
So he pulled me over,
Oh.
and they charged me with reckless driving, and he was like threatening to take me to jail.
But he was like nonchalant about it. He was like he wasn't even rude about it.
No, he
was just
wasn't.
like, I could take you to jail, son. I could take you to jail right now. You know how fast you were going.
And like, I don't. It's like in Texas, it's like if you're going over 100, that's when they start like, don't do that, please, sir. Not in this case.
And he's like, well, do you know them rental cars? They ain't got no cruise control assist on them. You got to watch your speed. I did probably take you to jail. And then Piper's like, okay,
what do you want me to do?
And I'm asleep in the passenger seat. I wake up like, what's going on? He's like, dude, I got pulled over. I was like, oh.
So yeah, and so he finally, I told him the whole deal, like, hey, we were just coming from New York, we're going to Texas. I was like, I didn't know that this was a rule here. And so he was like, okay. And he was like, well, I got to write you a ticket. You know, I was like, well, how much is the ticket gonna be? He's like, well, it's gonna be like $200. I'm like, okay, that's not the worst, right? He's like, but you're gonna have to appear in front of a judge because technically it's a felony. And I was like, what? Okay. So that led to me having to get a lawyer and all this stuff, which it ended up fine. I had to pay like $500 is what everything was. But
okay,
that was just like, it has definitely soured my like experience of like
Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia in general.
And that's where I'm from. That's funny.
So anyway, but the rest of the way back, it was not that bad.
It wasn't bad, but we looked at each other and we like universally agreed we're not stopping. We're just driving. And we drove, remember, we were like nodding off, driving down the road, and we finally got back. But
it was my first experience of a KFC all-you-can-eat buffet. I don't know, do you guys have Kentucky Fried Chicken?
We do. I think the Colonel's in every corner of the planet just about these days.
I figured, because I know it's in like Thailand.
It is in the UK.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So
Japan has it for Christmas. It's actually in Japan.
Yeah.
It's a specific Christmas dinner that people actually order in Japan as well.
That's the wildest thing ever. Here it's just like nobody eats there.
I sold this to Piper too. I was like, you gotta have the buffet.
I didn't know there's a buffet at KFC. I thought he was lying. I'm like, you mean Pizza Hut, right? And he was like, no, it's at KFC. So we stopped at a bunch of KFC, and we finally found one that had the all you can eat buffet, and it was fine. It just tasted like
it was terrible
KFC. But that was
I love the KFC buffets, and you just gotta find the right one. You know, I'm poor white boy from the hills of Virginia. So it's like, what are you doing this weekend? Are we going to take the family down to KFC? And but the thing is that was not the right KFC to go in. But that was our Nightmare Con experience.
No, there's that.
Well, I mean, out of all of that story, all I got was KFC buffet. Now I have to check out a KFC buffet. I'd be able to load a plate with potato and gravy, and then
that's what it is.
I would much rather have Jollibee.
Just put all of the chicken on. Oh, we forgot the Jollibee homeless lady in there too.
Oh, yeah. we thought we were going to get stabbed by somebody. All right, I'll tell that.
Well, homeless people always tend to follow us, and this is
you because you always look like you're doing business. You always have business shirt on. I dress. I wear a t-shirt and shorts and flip flops everywhere I go. It could be 10 degrees outside. I got flip flops on. So Ricky always has he's always like, I got my nice polo shirt on, or I got a button down on. So we were walking down the street, and there was this lady. She was most likely she had smelled methamphetamine before, and that's the nice way to put it. And she was yelling at a lot of people. And as we were making our way to Jollibee, because I'd heard so many things about it, and I love food. Like, I'm a fat person.
And only half of those people were in her head.
I know. Yeah. So she's like, well, she was walking down the road. Was she on a Segway, or was she yelling at someone on a Segway?
No, she was yelling at someone on the Segway. Then we ducked in because Piper has a what is the word? A phobia of people coming up to you and asking you for money or something.
I have a severe anxiety of feeling awkward and people making me feel awkward. So I don't function well like that. I don't know what it is. I just I don't know. So I freaked out because also I thought she may hurt somebody. So
that makes this really awkward, because I was actually about to ask you for $10 at the end of the show, and
I'll Venmo you some $10. I'm fine with it. It's not the asking. It's like the people. I don't know. It's just. So we're like, okay, we were going to Jollibee anyway. We hurried up, got in there, and we sat down, and we ordered our food. We're eating, and this lady like busts in the front door, and she just walks in and starts like asking everybody for like money. And she goes table to table asking people for money. And then she comes up to Ricky and she notices, oh, this man has money. So she walks over to you. What did she say to you?
I'm trying to remember, because she came from the table behind and she's like, because she was almost, it was hysterics. So it was like,
she was like panicked.
Give me money. And then she was like, then when somebody would say no, she's like, and like hulked out. Yeah. And she looked at me and she's like, are you going to give me money? And I was like, I don't even think I said anything.
Yeah, it was just like no, dead silence.
No, thanks. You can leave.
And then they find somebody like they very aggressively like were like got in this lady's face, that people that worked there, and they made her leave. But I thought I was so scared. I thought something bad was really going to happen.
You're going to get knifed in the
You
neck.
don't ever know, man.
That's a prison shiv. I know it. You're going to get it.
It's made from a chicken bone. She just stabbed me with an old chicken bone.
A chicken bone and a piece of used dental floss.
It's
a nunchuck.
Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, we ate pizza for 7 days. So that was, it's a great experience. I recommend going to New York Comic Con.
if you could go to any of the big three, it's got to be New York.
I like Emerald City better, honestly.
I mean, it's just the ambiance.
It's a different
Seattle's
experience.
So good too. I mean, they're both good.
Anyway.
Well, I'll keep it very short, because anyone who listens to the podcast knows. But I constantly am regretting the fact that I had 2020 tickets for San Diego, and unfortunately that with the cancellation, I didn't get. But that's all that story I'm going to tell, because people who've listened to the podcast would have heard me digressing and talking about how upset I was about that. But it's funny, this story. You guys, I have definitely had laugh out loud moments listening to the podcast, and it actually just reminds me when you're talking about this, about the Mr. Funko story, how the Mr. Funko, and I definitely recommend anyone who's going to go and check out your podcast to go and listen to episode 1 to 124, which is a recent episode where you actually do an AI script from chat. I think, was it Chat GTP?
Yeah, Chat
GPT. Yeah.
Was that the top hat and monocle one?
Yes, the top hat monocle. I won't say anything more because I don't want to spoil it, but definitely if people got a kick out of that story that you were telling, they should definitely go check out the episode with Mr. Funko.
Actually, we have 126. We also have, so I think we're going to do like in every other episode now from going forward, we are going to have story time with Mr. Funko, and it will. So it's a reoccurring thing now. It's going to be the end of every show is going to be a Chat GPT story with Mr. Funko.
Oh, I'm only about halfway through that episode. I was listening
Nice.
earlier. I got up to a part where you guys were talking about basketball cards and
Oh yeah.
and Pokemon cards and things as
Mm-hmm.
well. But let's, because this is obviously a collecting podcast as well.
Mhm.
I'd love to get each of your individual feelings on collecting. How has being a part of the Pop Collectors Alliance, has that changed your collecting journey? Has it expanded it? Do you need to be more like, this is a lot of questions in one go, but do you need to be more refined now, like, because you see so much stuff coming through the store? Do you have to be more controlled in how you collect?
Oh man.
I'll let you take the store part, but
Yeah.
I'll take the how my collector's journey sort of expanded with the Pop Collectors Alliance. I think as a collector growing up, you didn't really know how expansive the world could be of collecting.
Mm-hmm.
And circa 2013, 14, when I started collecting Funko, it was very topical. It's like I saw something in a store, I liked it, it was great. And then sort of as we began the PCA and peeling, I said this once already, but peeling back the curtain and seeing this whole macro level economy that's behind collecting and strategies and just how, I don't know, intertwined everyone is. I mean, there's so many great things about collecting, and the PCA has offered us. We've been able to been invited to conventions to speak. We've been in the community space. We've been in the exhibitor space. We've been, attendees and lines, and we've been with people with Funko and collectors. And I mean, we still haven't broken into the board yet because that's the whole Funko Insider thing. But we kind of know the background. And I think it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, more of a blessing than a curse, because I'm so OCD when it comes to things. So I always want to be the guy that knows, like, I can get this and I can get that. But there's some glass ceiling that you can't break through in that background, like protos or things along those lines. So that can be the disappointing aspect of it. But all of the good outweighs that, to just being able to see how collectors, it doesn't matter what walks of life you're from, what political backgrounds, whatever you have, everything kind of drops. And everybody, we always talk about the line stories when you're waiting in line and you sort of bond with people. We met Josh and Mike from Talking Pops, and we expanded into other podcasts and people that we've just built relationships over the years that you may not in a normal day ever be with those kind of people. So I think from the expansive world of what collecting is, I think that it's offered us a tremendous look into what that is, and we're blessed because of that. And I mean, there's bad there, but there's far more good.
Nice.
All right. So as far as the store goes,
he's like all grumpy.
I had to
curmudgeoned.
It's bad. It honestly is. So previously, I was pre-2020. I was very much I want to buy everything that I see that I like, and that became a problem.
Yeah, it can.
I think at peak I had like about 1,450 pops, and that's just my Funko stuff. That's not including action figures or trading cards or any of that stuff. So
is that all?
Yeah, that's all. That's nothing. That's nothing, man. So I had all that, and then the world collapsed, and I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, it's not as fun, I think, like just buying things online. So I kind of, that was my brick wall I hit, and I was like, I'm gonna stop this. And instead I purged 1,000 pops. And
wow.
I got rid of a lot of stuff, and with that I was able to basically pay off all our debt.
Nice.
So I paid off like 3 credit cards and paid off my car and then a couple other things. So it was a good chunk of money, and I'm really thankful for my bad spending habits previously, because it ended up being a way for really to help me out, like help the family out. So after that,
oh, hang on, sorry. It just glitched out for a second there.
I saw that you disappeared.
Oh, hang on a second. Am I still? I think I'm still recording. Yep. Great.
Are you?
So yes.
And then after
So,
that, you said, and then
and then after
that.
that, and after that, that was the last thing you said.
Then after that, we got to we worked our way to eventually we got to the store. I continued buying things, but it was more of like it was very like selective, and there just wasn't a ton of things that I was picking up that was my own stuff that I really really wanted. And then we opened the store, and we started getting things in again, and it was like, oh no, this is like rekindling this, like, oh, I got to get all these cool things. And when we first opened the store, like the first year, it was a internal struggle with my demons of where I'm like, oh, I want all these things for myself, but I need to sell them so we can make rent. Like, so that was hard. And throughout that year, I kind of like came to the realization of like, I need to like focus things. And we've talked about that before, where we need to like, you need to focus your collecting, like pick the things that you're really passionate about, and not just because at the beginning of Funko, like you could buy every single thing you saw because there wasn't a ton you were seeing. And now Funko puts out like 3,000 different things a year, and it's impossible. So, and now I'm very focused. I'm just pretty much just like, I collect wrestling things and I collect Freddy Funko. That's pretty much it as far as like Funko goes. And then, I do Pokemon and Magic and stuff like that. But as far as like physical things, I do that. And then occasionally I'll pick up a couple like designer toys, like, small production, handmade kind of things. I'll do that as well. But it was really bad at first. And then it helped me realize like, hey, here is the right path to go down.
Cool. Two totally different sort of stories there as well, but I get that willingness to buy everything, or the desire, I should say, sorry, to buy everything that you see that you're a fan of. I did that for a while though with my Funkos. I didn't end up over 1,000 Funko, I have to admit, but I did. I have gotten to over 300, and I had to sort of slow that down as well before it got too far out of hand.
Well, I will preface that I've been collecting since like 2012, 2013. So at least it was over a good span of time. It wasn't like we've had conversations with people where they're like, oh, I just started collecting and I have 500 already. I've done that in 6 months. I'm like, dude, you need to slow down.
Yeah,
like
you got a problem.
We need to reel it in a little bit.
Whoa. Technical difficulties right in the middle here. We will get back in a moment to the discussion with Rick and Piper, but I'll take this little brief interlude while editing this section to let you know that if you do enjoy this conversation and you want to hear more, you can go over and check out their podcast, because right after we finished recording this episode, I actually recorded an episode for their podcast with them and was a guest on their show. So you can continue to hear this really awesome conversation over there. And yeah, with that, let's get back into it.
All right, so recording again now. Welcome back. Hang on, we just had some technical difficulties, but we're back. So I do apologize if you heard things breaking up there during the recording, but we'll edit out the gap that we had to get the technical issues resolved. We're back in now. The last thing I think we were talking about was essentially me saying that I understood where that desire to collect everything, and that I'd stopped collecting. Well, I haven't stopped collecting pops, but I'd slowed down a bit, and once I'd hit about the 300 mark. So let's go from there.
Well, what I remember saying was, the amount that I had accumulated was over, like, since I've been collecting since 2012. So It's not like I did it in a day. So it's like, so it's been a progression for sure.
And I think I went to one of the things that you learn as being an exhibitor or owning a store is that there's a different aspect to what that means. And early on in the podcast, we had this like big thing that we focused on that was sort of our moral set, like don't flip, right? And it's
no flip zone.
Yeah, the no flip zone. Wow, do the air horn.
We abandoned that.
And so I think that we quickly realized, as being people who exhibited, having a store, is that there's more to it than just the simplicity of having a no flip zone. And, our targeted audience at that time was, people that were frustrated because when Funko grew to such a large scale in 2016, 17, and 18, It was hard to find things on shelves. I can only imagine what you guys had. And we try to combat that, but then we quickly realize that sometimes as a collector, you have to get the things that you don't want in order to get the things that you do want. And by that, that's the aspect of owning the store and being at conventions when you're taking trades and you're buying things from people, or and even it's your own personal collection. It's like, hey, I don't necessarily want the Grady Twins chase from Target.
I do.
But I know that I can get this exclusive Batman or this exclusive Superman or some piece that you're looking for. So I think that's one of the things that has sort of changed us too on our journey.
Yeah. And actually, talking about the exclusives and things like that, as I mentioned right at the start, the way that I found you actually was when I first started listening to the episodes where you were talking about Funko NFTs. And this is obviously a different type of exclusive now that is available in the market. And I know that you guys are very, very much into all of those different drops that happen as well. As well as I think I heard you guys talking about the Hot Wheels ones as well. So you've been part of a few different of those digital collectibles as well. Tell me about your experience so far with that, and how do you see the collector sphere going in that direction?
Well, I think the first piece, from my perspective, is something that we talked along on the time on the podcast, is that it's exclusivity. And as collectors, you like numbered things. Some people do, some people don't, but a vast majority, I'll go and say it's 80% or more. We like to get exclusive things, specifically in lines that you collect. So I think what the NFT market has created is a unique opportunity, and it's not that hard. Like the boundary for entries harder than going to a convention. I'll say that, like just learning the process and the wallets and the setups, but they've made it so easy over time to where they are today that boundary has come down a little bit. But I think that if you get a line that you like, Game of Thrones for me, it gives you an opportunity as a collector. Even these coins, like if I buy it after it's released, I'm going to pay 40% more than what I would if I just bought a redeemable coin. And I don't want to get too deep into the NFT world, but I think it creates what we had always talked about that Funko needed to do, is take a set, like copy sports cards or collectibles, and have these limited edition runs that you can get. And then you have that both with the digital cards that you collect, those NFTs, but then you also have the utility that we talk about in those episodes 109 to 112 of I get something physical for it. And it's a unique type of collecting. I don't know long term what that sort of morphs into, and I think it's going somewhere. I think this is current state and the best that they can do, but I think it's going to grow and expand. But from a business aspect too, and I'll close it out, is that as a business, you can project your earnings, and you can also secure sales to a certain point, that knowing that you can sell these things on the market and get your money back right away and make profit. And then on the secondary market, you're taking a little bit out of every trade and transaction. So it's kind of like almost utility for Funko and their shareholders to say, if we're going to do 12 NFT releases this year, we know the average NFT brings this much profit. And we know that with the logistics issues we've had since COVID, that we can forward project these out over a year and really ensure that we get the product to the customer without any delay.
Unless it's the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers ones that should have been here like 6 months ago and they still aren't.
Yeah, but I mean, as a whole, if you look at what Funko has, that failure rate is far lower than all of the other product lines. So
this is true.
I have the Transformers line, which was the first one that I jumped into, and then they brought out the DC line, and you can't really see them very well because the light's reflecting off the cases at the moment. But I actually have the DC, the Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, Batman, DC Rebirth, and then in the middle here is Freddy Funko as Batman as well. So I've got those first series ones from the DC, and now that they're just about to release the Dark Knight one, I'll definitely be going for that drop as well.
I'm not a big Batman collector at all. Like that's probably like my least favorite thing, and I'm really excited about the The Dark Knight
The
one.
The Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, that's like of any Batman, that's my favorite. I'm a little sad that there's not a Joker in there, but I get it. They probably don't have license to use Heath Ledger, but other than that, it's a great set. I'm excited for it.
Solid lineup.
Yo,
The one suggestion that I saw that I did agree with, and I think that Freddie Funko as Commissioner Gordon is fine. I actually would have been one of the ideas I came up with myself if they asked me to do that. But I think another one that I saw someone suggest was the Joker, like from the nurse scene when he's dressed up as the nurse.
Yeah, that'd be epic.
Yes.
Yeah, if they had done Freddie as that would have been great. I think that's a great time to sort of wrap things up. We've had technical issues, not as much as the drive to New York, to and from New York. But I do appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. And yeah, before I let you go, I always get people to plug their socials and where people can find you. Where can people first off find the Collectors Alliance? Where can they find the store? And yeah, you guys in particular.
If you want to check out the store, I'm gonna say unfortunately it is super expensive for us to ship anything to Australia, so I'm sorry to everyone down here. But PCAtoys.com is our website. You can go check it out. Instagram at PCA Toys. You can check out the podcast literally on every platform in existence except Audible. I don't know how to get on Audible.
Yeah.
But everywhere else, you can just look up Pop Collectors Alliance. We're there. Website's popcollectorsalliance.com. We have a Facebook group. You can just search official Pop Collectors Alliance Facebook group. It's pretty awesome. There's a lot of really nice people in there. So is there anything else?
No, that's good. Just did better than me.
Just search it on the internet. We're there everywhere.
Nice.
We have a YouTube channel too that we haven't put anything on in like 3 years.
But it's coming.
Oh, I know.
I saw that. I actually did look on YouTube as well to see if there was anything else on there. And I saw that there was 3 years ago doing a mystery box opening, I think.
We did a lot of stuff. We actually used to have a studio in like downtown. Well, it was Brandon's, but like we had like a really nice studio, and we had to give it up. But it was we did some. There's some stuff out there. So if you wanna watch us open some boxes of things, we did that, and then.
When you get hit by a drunk driver driving home from a 3 a.m. recording session, you don't want to record videos anymore. There's a bad stigma around it.
No, we have a space now, so it's like we have a studio and we have a room, and we'll be able to shoot stuff, and then maybe our podcast will be a video podcast very soon.
I have to ask. There's a story I've missed there. What's the getting hit by?
Oh man,
a drunk driver? No, when we recorded those last YouTube videos, I was driving home at like 3 a.m. in the morning. We had left Dallas and I was driving back, and I got hit by a drunk driver, and he was driving like 90 miles an hour.
Oh no.
Yeah, and on top of that, your vehicle was loaded full of pops that we had just done a giveaway for patrons. And there was probably there was a lot of value in there. There's a ton of pops in there, and they were all destroyed.
Yeah.
So
but I walked away, so that's
the important thing is you did not get dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it definitely. And then at the same time, my phone had died, and I lived 2 hours away, so I had to drive back from. We were in Dallas. I had to drive to Waco, which was like 2 hours south, and my phone was dead. And so my wife kept trying to call me, and she was freaking out like I had died. And then she got a hold of Ricky, and she was like, "Have you heard from Sean?" He's like, "No, I was just in a car accident. And my car is totaled." And she's like, "Oh God, he's dead."
Oh no.
And then I got home, and she was real pissed at me. Yeah. She was like, "Your phone was dead." And I was like, "I didn't have a charger. I'm sorry."
We got people leaving, people hit by drunk drivers. It's a crazy night.
Which is crazy. I mean, yeah.
Never a dull moment at the PCA.
It's always fun. It's always a good time.
Well, look, I'll drop those links in the description as always, so that people can find you guys. 60% of my listeners are actually out of the US, so if you are in the US and you are in Texas, and you can go into the store, say hello, or if you're at one of those conventions and you see the PCA guys, go say good day and tell them that JD sent you. In the meantime, I think to wrap this up, should we do a little PCA style wrap up here?
I'm down with that.
Okay. Give us your best PCA ending on Collecting Heroes.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Piper.
Good night.
And I'm JD.
Oh, don't get hit by a car.
I love you.
Bye.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.